Let's take a look at how the power cord comes in on an original 1968 Fender Bassman. So the cord comes right into the back of the chassis here, and it comes through this strain relief. I just already removed that. It comes in, and let's follow the hot lead. So it goes to this courtesy outlet, and then from the courtesy outlet there's a really tiny jumper wire over to one leg of this ground switch. And then from the ground switch there's another jumper wire that goes to the switch. This is the on-off switch. And then when you turn the switch on, now it connects to this primary leg of the power transformer. And then now let's take a look at the neutral. Comes in from the cord, goes to the other leg of the courtesy outlet, goes through another jumper wire to the opposite leg of the ground switch, and from the ground switch it goes to the fuse holder, and then through the fuse it goes to the other leg, the other primary tap on the power transformer. So there's a couple of interesting things about this. You gotta look at these parts and try to think, what was their reasoning back in the 60s? Like, why would they put a fuse in a circuit in the 60s? Today, we think of fuses and circuit breakers as a way to protect the user. If there's a short, if power starts going straight to the chassis, for instance, because something shorted, we want to remove the power so that if somebody touches the chassis, they don't get electrocuted. Well, that's not what they had in mind here, because clearly the fuse is on the neutral leg. Their idea was, if power starts going straight to ground, we just want to open the circuit so that the rest of the amp doesn't burn up. And if that does happen, if power starts going to the chassis and the fuse blows, the chassis is just going to sit there being energized with 120 volts right off the hot leg. So they clearly didn't have protecting the user in mind. Also, this ground switch. This is something that we don't really have on modern stuff, because this is something that we don't really have on modern stuff. This two-prong cord where both prongs are the exact same size and you can plug it in either way and the amp doesn't care. Their idea back then was, well, we're dealing with alternating current, so it really doesn't matter which way you plug it in, except that they noticed sometimes they would get a little ground hum in the circuit if it was plugged in a particular way, so that's where this switch comes in. If you switch it one way, the chassis is connected to the hot leg, and if you switch it the other way, it's connected to the ground leg. And the idea was you'd plug it in and you'd adjust this switch and just pick whatever position hummed the least. So from the center leg of the switch, which is the wiper, it's connected down to this capacitor that's hiding under here, and then that just solders straight to the chassis. That's called a death cap. That's what we call them now, because if this capacitor ever shorts, and then you flip the switch to the position that is on the hot leg, you energize the chassis straight to the hot leg, and you won't know it until you touch something that's grounded. And a lot of rock stars have been electrocuted that way. Their amp becomes energized, the chassis, and then the shielding on their guitar cable right to their guitar, and typically right to their guitar strings, becomes energized, and they don't know it until they touch something grounded, which is usually another player whose instrument is grounded correctly, or the microphone, if the microphone is grounded. There's a scene depicting that in the movie Almost Famous, where the guitar player is playing an intro to the song, and then he goes up to sing, and as soon as he touched the microphone, he stands there and gets electrocuted. That's because of one of these switches and a death cap and a two-prong cord. I mean, that's just the stupid way that they did stuff back then. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace the two-prong cord with a three-prong cord. The ground wire on the new three-prong cord is going to go straight to the chassis. The hot lead is going to go through the fuse to the on-off switch, and the neutral lead is going to go straight to the other primary power transformer lead. So there's no way that any of it's going to get messed up. And we're also going to we're not going to remove it just because we need something to plug the hole, but we're not going to wire in this courtesy outlet, because once again, the courtesy outlet is designed for one of these plugs that can be plugged in either way. There's no ground on the courtesy outlet, and there's no difference between the hot slot and the neutral slot. So if you ever plug something into that, you're right back to electrocuting yourself. It's just stupid. So the hot wire is going to go to the fuse and then the switch. The neutral wire is going to go to the other leg of the power transformer, and the ground wire is going to go right to ground. No ground switch, no fuse on the neutral, and no courtesy outlet. Okay, sorry about the background noise, but let's take a look at how I ran this power. So my new 3-wire cord comes in here, and first off, the green wire, the ground, comes over here to, it grounds on this power transformer bolt. And I could have run it anywhere, and anything would have been better than the death cap as far as making it quiet. But since this is where the center tap from the power transformer is, I figured that's probably the most official ground spot, so it has the best chance of staying quiet. So then the white wire stays twisted with the black wire until here, and it's got a nice solder splice right to this power transformer primary tap, and with heat shrink, of course. And it kind of looks like it's just tossed in there in a random spot, but that's about the best place I could put it where it doesn't press against anything. I had it nicely tucked in the back corner of the chassis over here, but it was naturally wanting to just press against the power tube socket here against one of the legs. So I thought, you know, eventually it might wear through its insulation, and that would be bad. So putting it right here in the middle, it kind of naturally stays away from stuff, so that's a good place for it. So then the black wire here stays twisted with the neutral, so it should stay as quiet as possible. And then it goes right here to, the first thing it goes to is the fuse holder. So if the fuse ever blows, nothing in the amp is energized except this one solder connection right here. So that's as safe as I can possibly make it. And then it goes through the fuse to this jumper wire, which was the existing jumper wire that goes to the switch. It used to come from the ground switch, but now I've eliminated that from the circuit. So, and I just trimmed it a little bit shorter and soldered it right to the fuse holder here. So the power goes through the fuse, through this jumper wire to the switch, the mains on-off switch, and then the other primary transformer or power transformer primary lead is still factory soldered to this switch. So I didn't mess with either of these joints. The only thing I did was move this jumper here to the fuse holder and bring the new hot wire to the fuse holder. So I've got ground straight to the chassis. I've got the neutral going straight to the primary tap with nothing interrupting it, and I've got the power going straight to the fuse holder and then to the switch. So nothing can get reversed. There's no way that the chassis can be energized, and if anything ever does short out, the fuse blows and there's nothing hot in the amp since the hot wire goes to the fuse first. I now declare this Bassman safe.